What's up, everybody? Punk Rock Talk, episode 7. Today, I'm very excited to have our guest, Alex Hagen of the Ravagers. This is going to be a really cool episode. We're going to talk about a lot of things. Not just Ravagers music, but just Alex as a whole. Right now you're listening to their most recent single. It's called Shake the Reaper, off of their new record, Badlands. We've added some of those tracks to our Spotify playlist, Rebellion Noise 2022. Make sure you're following that. We update it every Monday with new tracks, so it stays fresh. And maybe that way you'll hear some stuff that you haven't heard before. If you have missed a previous episode of Punk Rock Talk, you can watch them on the Havoc's YouTube channel. We add the most recent episode to our channel every Thursday. So this episode will be up there tomorrow. These episodes also stay on our page, on our Instagram page. So you can watch them from there too. But it's a little bit easier to find them on YouTube. If you're not following us there, if you're not subscribed to our channel there yet, go ahead and do that. You'll be updated every time we add a new video. And there is plenty of content heading that way. This episode of Punk Rock Talk, and every episode of Punk Rock Talk, is sponsored by Dead and Buried Inc. That's Dead and Buried INC, not INK. If you are in a band and you need merchandise, they are your source. You can find them on Instagram at Dead and Buried Inc. or at deadandburiedinc.com. Again, that's Dead and Buried Inc. INC, not INK. Before I bring Alex on here, just wanted to mention that earlier this week the Havoc announced that we have a new single coming to Spotify and all streaming platforms really soon. It's technically not a new song though. The very first song we ever wrote is called We Want the Truth. We have re-recorded that, and it'll be on streaming platforms very soon. So make sure that you are following our Spotify so that you'll be notified the moment we upload any new music there, which again, there is plenty of that coming as well. All right, having said that, I'm going to go ahead and send the invite here to Alex. Here he is!
Yo!
Yo! What's going on, man?
Nothing much, dude. Hey,
What
do you think about the Anything album by The Damned?
You're flipping the script on me. It's like you're starting the interview.
Hey, yeah, let's make this about each other. It's not all about me, you know?
I think it's cool. But you know what, man? I've actually been doing kind of a deep dive on you guys, and I'm really excited about Badlands.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, I was just playing Shake the Reaper.
Cool.
Dude, the moment I heard that song, I was like, shit, this fucking rocks. It just has that kind of AC/DC driving beat. Which that's been my favorite band since I was like 5 years old.
Hell yeah. Cool, man.
I think like the gateway drug into rock and roll for almost everybody.
Yeah, totally.
But man, that song is so much fun. And so is the music video, which I want to get into that. and we will. But before we do that, I kind of want to just talk a little bit about you.
Let's do it. Yeah, why not?
I want to talk about your personal history, where you're from, because I think that that definitely plays a big role in your music and who you are, not just as a person, but as an artist. You're from the city of Baltimore.
True.
If you do any research on the city of Baltimore, in the 70s, it was dubbed as Charm City, as kind of a way to promote the city and in hopes to kind of give it a positive look in the media and to hopefully attract new people there. But I've also heard it referred to as Filth City or Filthy City. And in fact, when I was looking at your Spotify bio, it refers to you guys as the Filthy City Foursome, which I thought was very, very catchy and memorable. Do you know anything about the origin of that? Is it Filth City or Filthy City?
It's Filth City, and I first heard it hanging out in Reptilian Records in probably like 2000 and 2008, and a lot of local bands use that as their thing, and I just thought it was cool. And I'm carrying the torch of Filth City with Ravagers, so that's just, I mean, it's self-explanatory where it came from. It's pretty dirty here, and you know, you go outside and there's heroin needles on the ground and stuff, but they're trying their best to clean it up, and they're doing a good job, you know, but it's still pretty filthy. So
did you come up with that term, Filth City Foursome, or did somebody else write that for you?
somebody else wrote that. I didn't write that, but I was like, okay, that's cool, that makes sense, you know.
Yeah, man, I think it's badass, you know, like, because you guys definitely have that snotty rock and roll look, and you know, it fits that, not just the sound of the music, but the image of the band as well.
Yeah, there's been Baltimore's been known for mostly like hardcore bands, and but there have been a few like rock and roll 77 bands that have been in the scene for years, and most notably the Fishnet Stalkers, the Beatings, and those are bands that I looked up to when I was younger, and I just like that style of music, so that's kind of what I'm bringing to the table with my band.
Cool. So you mentioned, you know, those bands appealing to you when you were younger. Let's talk about your family background and life growing up in Baltimore. I assume that you were born and raised there, correct?
So, yeah, I'm from Baltimore. It's always been like a home base for me, and I've always been here a lot, but I grew up with a father in the military, so I moved around quite a lot. I went to high school in Las Vegas. I lived in Texas. Pretty much moved every 3 years of my life, but always came back to Baltimore because this is where my family is. So
Right on. So bit of a military brat. You have
yeah,
roots there in Baltimore.
a lot of different perspectives, and that's, you know, definitely a huge part of my music too. So
Very cool. I'm going to read a couple of interesting factoids about Baltimore so that anybody that's watching or listening can know a little bit more about it. This first one that I found I thought was hilarious. It says, in the city of Rockville, Maryland, the seat of Montgomery County that makes up part of the Baltimore-Washington metropolitan area, it's a misdemeanor to swear while on or near a roadway. Have you ever been given a citation for that?
no,
That's so bizarre, man. Have you ever heard that before?
no, I haven't. You know, and I don't know what the rules are in Baltimore County, but in Baltimore City, this place is pretty lawless. Like, you can really, like, anything goes around here. It's kind of why I like living here. we went to Vegas a couple years ago, and my friend almost got a ticket for jaywalking. And if you've ever been to Baltimore, people just walk out into the street and make you slow down. They're like trying to hit them. You know what I mean? They're like, I dare you to hit me right now. So it's pretty crazy out here, you know. It has been getting gentrified like a lot of cities, but it's still kind of a shithole, and a lot of people don't want to move here. So that's why I like it. You know, my rent hasn't gone up in 10 years, and a lot of people who live in Austin and places like that can't say that. So
Right. That kind of hits on one of the other things I wanted to read about. Baltimore consistently ranks in the most dangerous cities in the United States. According to crime statistics released by the FBI, Baltimore had the third highest violent crime rate in the country in 2019. Have you ever witnessed or been involved in a violent crime?
I've seen some pretty gnarly shit living here, but I haven't, thank God, I haven't really been involved in a violent crime besides getting rocks thrown at me by kids, or, you know, I've gotten beat up a few times, but that really hasn't. It didn't. There was no blood involved, which is good. But yeah, like if you live here and you go into certain parts of the town, you're gonna see some crazy stuff. You know, people. There was a dude named Bill who got murdered outside of my house, and we had to call 911 because we heard gunshots like pretty late at night, and we saw the guys that did it, and they ran down the back alleyway, and it was crazy, man. It's like stuff that you don't want to experience. It definitely, there's like you get PTSD from seeing stuff like that, or just like being like, oh, there's a dead body getting pulled out of the Inner Harbor right now. Like, that's not cool. Yeah.
Maybe that's one reason why the seafood is so.
Yeah, maybe it cracks all abs.
There's some really interesting stuff though about Baltimore. Edgar Allan Poe House and Museum. Have you ever been there?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's really cool. That's right downtown, and it's a fun place to go on a date with your girlfriend or whatever, and go check out the old graveyard. There's a bunch of politicians buried there too. There's also the Greenmount Cemetery, which has the guy who invented the Ouija board is buried there, and his tombstone is a Ouija board. So,
wow, that's cool.
Yeah, if you're into really weird stuff, that's also, if you go downtown, there's a 7-Eleven. And if you go into the 7-Eleven, this is in the Mount Vernon neighborhood. There's a plaque on the wall that says the Ouija board was invented upstairs, because that's where that guy lived. I can't remember his name off the top of my head right now, but if you look it up, you will see that the Ouija board was invented in Baltimore.
Wow, that's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
You ever had any experiences with a Ouija board?
No, I haven't. My girlfriend has, but I don't mess with that stuff really.
I listened to the podcast that you did with Calabrese.
Oh yeah.
You talk about something really interesting on their podcast about the Rake Witch, and I don't want to spoil it for anybody that hasn't listened to that. But that was a pretty fucking creepy story, man. Were you just like out of your mind when that was happening?
Yeah, that was probably like the first time that I and only time that I've ever seen anything that I didn't immediately understand and get. Like, I was like, this is paranormal. This is weird. This is not right in any way whatsoever. So, yeah, that definitely stuck with me. And everybody else who was in the van with us, like, that was the creepiest thing ever. But yeah, we were dropping each other off after this little run we did with the virus, 2015, and we were driving down some back roads in Pennsylvania. were going through some farms or something, and it was during the winter, so it was probably like 20 degrees outside, maybe 10 degrees, and we drove up the road, and there was this guy with a rake. I thought it was a guy at least, but I was like, this is too weird. Like, what is this thing? Like, and he was, the way it was walking was like some sort of Quasimodo, uh, like humanoid thing that was running up the side of the road. And we drove past it one time and we were like, yo, what was that? So we turned around and drove back up the road and passed it again. And this time we opened the door and our buddy asked it, like, hey, like, are you okay? Do you need help? Like, what are you doing outside right now? There's no reason anyone should be outside on this road at it's probably like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. And it walked past us and covered its face with a rake like this, and then ran across the street into the woods. And we were just like, oh God.
Yeah,
was,
that was terrifying.
worst.
Speaking of that podcast, just before this live stream started, I added it to the Rebellion Noise 2022 playlist so that
Cool.
anybody that wants to listen to it, they can find it there. You talk about a lot of cool stuff in that interview. So
Cool.
anybody that's watching or listening now, check it out. It's a lot of fun. It kind of reminded me of like Mystery Science Theater 3000 because it has all the guys from Calabrese are like hosting it, and they're kind of giving commentary as you're talking, and it just sounds like a fucking episode of Mystery Science Theater 3000 to me.
Yeah, their podcast is awesome. You should watch it if you
Hell
haven't.
Yeah. I also want to tell anybody in the audience that if you have questions, you submit them by clicking on that question mark icon on your screen. Don't put it in the comments section. It gets lost there. Oh, the Suzi Moon is here.
Hey, girl.
Yeah, don't put it in the comments. It gets lost there. But if you have a question, click that question mark icon, and we'll get to it. I want to move on a little bit and talk more about the band.
Okay.
Tell us the history of the band. How did you form?
So we went through some name changes. Well, it was kind of like the Fishnet Stalkers broke up, which was a band that I grew up in Baltimore listening to, going to shows and drinking, having a good time, hanging out around those guys. They're all friends, but they ended up breaking up, and I was friends with their drummer, and he later became our drummer. So we started playing music together, and whatever I was coming up with at the time, it sucked, but he was patient. He was like, no, we can do this, man. Let's start a new band. We've got this. So we had a few lineups of people, and we went through a few different band names, and we ended up settling on me singing, playing guitar, playing lead guitar most of the time too. And that was in like 2013. And when we found our ultimate lineup, which was me singing, playing rhythm guitar and lead guitar, and Ray on drums and Kurt on bass. So it was kind of like a 3-piece, and we were just pulling in guitar players to play second guitar, and we were going for like a 77 punk band. We didn't really know what kind of band we wanted to be, and it kind of started forming itself after like 4 years of doing it. And we went through a numerous amount of guitar players, and our last permanent guitar player, Zach, was awesome, but he left the band to play with our buddies, The Virus, up in Pennsylvania, and we got Matt Gabbs, whose band, The Biters, had recently broken up, and he had always been with us in the studio and writing music with us, kind of helping me with my song, helping me structure my songs. I would come up with ideas, but he would help me kind of put them all together and be like, this doesn't work. Like, that sounds like It sounds like shit. You know, he was totally honest with me, which was awesome. And so it was a no-brainer when his band broke up and we needed a new guitar player. He joined, and we kind of, now we are the final lineup of Ravagers, and we're going to keep it that way.
So where did the band name come from? Because it's a badass name. It's also very easy to remember.
Cool, thanks. So I was just looking at like old Grindhouse and B movies. I watch a lot of horror movies and stuff like that, and I saw that there was like a 1970s horror flick called The Ravagers, and I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. It's like The Warriors. And then I read the description of it, and it was like 1992. The world is the world runs rampant with violence and hunger, and all there are left are bands of Ravagers. So I was just like looking at it. I was like, bands, Ravagers. Oh, that makes sense. Like, let's do that. That's cool as hell. You know what I mean? And it's like, it kind of has like a 1970s Warriors vibe to it. So. Yeah.
That's cool because
that's where I took the name. Yeah.
It's cool because I think, you know, growing up in the scene and trying to form a band and all of that, like when you're young, you don't have any idea what you're doing. But obviously at that time you had some previous experience, and you know, some things kind of start to just make more sense. But let's go back even further to that introduction to the scene for you. How old were you when that happened?
Oh, so that was pretty much like right when I moved to Vegas when I was 14 or 15, and I started skateboarding a lot more, and it kind of, I just heard bands through watching skate videos, and that was kind of a part of how I found the music that I like, was the music that went with the attitude of skating and the style of skating that I liked. So that's kind of the way I felt my way into punk, you know, or rock and roll.
What was like the first band that like really stood out to you in the punk scene at that time where you were just like, this is so badass, I want to do what they're doing?
I don't know. I can't remember. It was probably Misfits or something, you know?
Yeah, that one hits.
I'm still
hear it.
And I like all that stuff, Sam Hain and Danzig, and I think that was my first favorite band that kind of had such a cool attitude, and it didn't sound like anything else. And I got really into that in high school, and there were lots of like skinhead dudes that went to my high school, and so I got into like like British Oi bands, and like we would burn each other's CDs and stuff, and I get all this Oi compilations, and then I heard bands like Slaughter and the Dogs, you know, and I was like, oh hell yeah, like this is cool. It's like rock and roll, like, but it still has this pissed off attitude, you know?
Right.
So it's kind of bands like that, yeah. Like I love like The Last Resort, Misfits, and Slaughter and the Dogs.
Yeah, the first time I heard Slaughter and the Dogs, I was like, whoa, this sounds so awesome, because it has that straight ahead rock and roll flair, but like you said, it still sounds like pissed off, but also still like really good production quality.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
As opposed to shit like the Misfits, like their early stuff, it's just like, the first time I heard that, I was like, this sounds like it was recorded in a fucking garbage can. Like, what's happening here?
Yeah, don't get me wrong, man. And back then, like, you couldn't just go online and listen to every band. Like, if you got a CD or you bought one from whatever punk store, like, you're like, I spent a lot of money on the CD. I have to listen to it until I like it.
Yeah.
Like, I swear to God, I listened to Foreskins and Info Riot live and loud probably 7,000 times, just because that was one of the CDs I had, you know? But, yeah, that's kind of like something that's missing now. Like, people don't really learn to appreciate the low quality recordings.
Yeah, and it's that whole thing where now it's like everything's at our fingertips. So there's that whole instant gratification thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So how old were you when you were putting together your first project?
I was in high school. I just had random dudes that kind of I was playing bass, so that was all I knew how to play, and I was playing electric bass, and I started writing lyrics in kind of like Ramones style because I liked Ramones a lot too. Ramones and Misfits kind of just made sense to me, you know. And so I started writing in that style, and I was probably like 15 when I did that until I graduated from high school when I was 18. And then I moved to Baltimore and ended up joining a band that was already established with older dudes in it who were like all about like going on tour and stuff. And that band had more of a rock and roll feel. It was more like Dead Boys style rock and roll. And that's kind of where I learned that. And I was like, oh, I listen to these bands. I like that stuff a lot. Like this is my thing now. And I took that and I still apply it to my music today. So that band was called Living Rex.
And that was that band the last band that you were in before you formed Ravagers?
Yeah. So that was it.
And did you set off to form Ravagers on your own, or?
I did because at that time I was playing bass in Living Rex and I couldn't find another band to play bass for. Like there was just that scene and that style of music was dying down here, and I was like, I have to do this myself now. So I was living with Matt Gabbs at the time, and he played guitar in Fishnet Stalkers and a lot of bands I looked up to at a younger age, and then he ended up playing for the Biters in Atlanta, Georgia, and I would play guitar with him, and he kind of just helped me learn my way around the fretboard and stuff, and yeah, that was it, you know.
So then you started off on bass and then transitioned to guitar?
Exactly, yeah, in guitar and singing at the same time. Like went from being a bass player to being a front man playing guitar, and because there were no other bands that I could join, I had to do it myself and find other people to play.
That's a really challenging transition, man, you know, because just the rhythm of everything. Not only are you learning a new instrument with guitar and managing more, obviously, there's more strings, but also kind of finding your own identity as a vocalist and
Yeah,
as a frontman, man. That's huge.
yeah. So, and I'm still working on it now, you know.
Let's look at, I've got a couple of audience questions here. I'm going to pull one of those up and see what we've got. CTOMASIYO13 says, do you have any other interesting skills no one knows about? I know you have interesting skills that I want to talk about, but I think they're kind of well known.
Well,
Maybe more obscure.
I'm really good at playing pinball. I got really into playing pinball for a few years, and actually worked my way up in like the Maryland pinball ranks. So that's like a weird thing that I'm good at. And I skateboard, and I do art, visual art, but I hope that everybody knows that, but maybe if they don't, they should check it out. So
we're definitely going to talk about that because it's super, you've done a lot of super cool stuff, and
yeah.
it's important to talk about. So we'll dig into that. I do want to talk a little bit more about the band. I know we've kind of scraped the surface, but I want to talk about, are you now kind of the primary songwriter, or is it still a collaborative effort for the band?
I've always kind of been the primary songwriter, and but the last record we just put out, there was more collaboration on that, but between me, Matt Gabbs, and Tuck Smith, who produced it. A lot of the songs, the way I come up with them is I make demos on my computer, and I play every instrument or whatever, and I program the drums. But sometimes, like, it's just hard to just come up with an idea out of thin air. So a lot of the songs on the new record, Matt Gabbs really helped me by sending me riffs that he was playing, and I would just be like, oh, that's cool, okay. And I would write a hook over it, you know what I mean? Like, I would come up with a vocal melody that worked over it, and then we would piece it together. So some of them were just me 100%. Some of them were me and Matt. I wrote a song called White Widow with Tuck, who produced the album, and that's one of my favorite songs on there.
So you touched on something that actually gets me really excited, because you're the first person I've interviewed that has mentioned this at all. You're talking about writing songs in the demo stage and programming drums to them. I find that a lot of people in the punk rock scene think of, you know, writing songs as a band in a room together. That's just kind of the traditional way of doing things. And I think the punk scene has just always followed that template. But technology now has given us the ability to do things without being in the same room as other people in the band. And I also think that by doing things like programming drums, it kind of gives you as the songwriter this whole other creative outlet to take your songs in a direction that they might not have gone otherwise if you were collaborating with the band.
Yeah, you're right. A lot of those songs, I was a big part of writing a full-length record for me was variation and trying to make each song a little bit different. I have a habit of writing vocals over the same like time signature, like the same metronome. So it helped to like switch the drum beats up, and I tried to write each song with kind of like, what is this drum beat, like what is this bringing to the vocals, and I think it made the record more dynamic, where every song wasn't straightforward, you know, street punk beat or rock and roll beat or Motorhead beat or whatever. It kind of pulled the song in each of their own directions, each song, you know.
So when you talk about programming drums, some people probably don't even know what the fuck that means. So to break it down simply, in any songwriting software, there is basically a graph that you can assign instruments to, and virtual instruments.
Yeah, totally.
How did you learn how to do that?
Just using my computer to do everything else that I do for work, which is mostly, you know, Photoshop. Using YouTube for, if I got stuck with something, you can pretty much look up anything on YouTube and figure out how to do it. So that's a huge part of it. The GarageBand software came free on my computer, and it makes it pretty user friendly on how to program drums and just kind of like come up with that stuff. But I mean, we did work a lot together on writing the songs in the studio, but it helped to have like or in the practice space rather than the studio, but it helped to have like a basic structure of the song, you know, and we could really get like the kick pattern right. Because some of the drums I programmed, it's pretty sloppy, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we were able to tighten all that up before we recorded everything.
Yeah, I think the demo phase is super helpful for that. And, you know, it can sound awesome in a live setting when you're rehearsing with the band, but you can't hear certain intricacies that are happening. Whereas when you're demoing off something, you can exactly hear what's happening and like, oh shit, that needs to be changed.
Yeah, and you can isolate everything, you know, and listen to part of it. So
one of the things that you said a minute ago was by doing that, it kind of enabled you to focus more on your vocals and figure out what works for each song. But prior to this band, you weren't the lead singer. Let's talk a little bit about that, finding your voice. What did you do in order to discover who you are as a vocalist? Did you do lessons or anything like that?
No, not really. I think I just covered songs that I liked, and what I felt worked for me was what I went with. I think that helps a lot. Just learning songs that you like and being like, oh, I can't sing that song. Why can't I sing it for some reason? Oh, because it's in a weird key. And maybe I should sing it an octave lower. What's my voice sound like when I do it like that? That was a huge part of it. It still is for me. I still write songs that are like impossible to sing because I hear them one way in my head and they come out a different way. So I have to drop the key down, and change the key is in like the spacing and what bar you play power chords or whatever on the fretboard. So you play the notes lower to fit where your voice can land, but,
I know exactly what you're talking about as a vocalist myself. It's one of those ongoing journeys that can be so frustrating because, like you said, there's certain songs where you're just like, why the fuck can't I sing this? And how
yeah,
that
exactly.
can. And I do the same thing, actually. I work on a lot of cover songs of stuff that's outside of the punk rock genre, just whatever excites me, vocalists that excite me, because I think it's important as a vocalist to constantly push the boundaries.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think it's cooler to set the bar higher and challenge yourself and write songs out of your comfort zone, and which I always do, which pisses me off a lot, but it has made me a little bit better because I've had to rise to the occasion to learn how to sing them and play them and make them translate well live, as long as, as well as in the recording.
Who would you say is your biggest vocal influence?
Oh shit, I don't know. I would say I like Iggy Pop, who influenced Stiv Bators, who I'm also highly influenced by. And I look at like the singers who influence the singers that I like, and I try to listen to those guys and find what the singers that I like took from those dudes and compare it like that. Like, oh, he's just trying to sing like Mick Jagger. You know what I mean? And you can hear it once you realize it and you listen to those bands.
Right.
Like how much Stiv Bators was trying to sound like Iggy Pop and Mick Jagger. Like, if you listen to it yourself, you'll find that out. But as when it comes to like lyrical content, I like Danzig a lot, and I like all of those songs. I like Lemmy and Motorhead and all of that stuff. Because they wrote songs true to their lives, and they pushed the boundaries and pissed people off in the process. So it was cool.
Yeah, I think, resonating with the listener is super important. And the best way to do that is to be genuine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. My buddy was like, this dude that I looked up to, he was like, man, when you write lyrics, make sure you write them from your heart, because if you don't, then people are just going to think it sucks.
Right. Before we continue on, do you have another light in your room that you could turn on? Because it's starting to look a little dark.
The sun's going down right now.
Right.
Yeah, I think I do. Yeah. Give me a second here.
Okay. There we go. That's much better.
Cool. Okay.
Continuing on with that, another thing that is super huge I think it's super huge for anybody that's a front man anyone that's a vocalist, but also anyone that wants to be in a high energy band. Um, Physical fitness, especially as you get older, it's more challenging. Do you do anything specific? Do you have like a regimen that you follow for that, or do you just have amazing genes?
Uh, that is difficult when it comes to playing live shows, and especially the way I write songs where the vocals are like through the whole song, and it's hard to breathe at the same time. So yeah, I like to be in the best physical shape possible. Um, I do stuff. I try not to drink too much, but I still do, and I don't. I quit smoking. I don't smoke anymore. 2020 was kind of rough. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Where leave your house and do anything. So it was like, what's the point? Um, I was doing lots of push-ups like I was in jail, though. I was just like, this will give me something to do. Skateboarding's also kind of kept me healthy, just going out and riding as fast as I can. Um, yeah, I went outside uh, yesterday and ran 2 miles without stopping because I am trying to prep myself for this 4-week tour and get back into shape so I'm not out of breath on stage. And man, I feel like I've been hit by a car today. Like my leg just like crushed.
Yeah,
So,
I think there's this whole like misconception within the music scene, especially the punk scene, of like every day it's about getting as fucked up as possible and eating garbage and not giving a fuck about anything. But if
yeah,
you're an
totally.
artist, you can't live that way and go on stage and give a good performance.
Maybe when you're young you can, but I mean, hey, I'm still young and I still can, but uh, you do have to start like if you want to take it to the next level, you got to run. Yeah, you got to like don't just eat pizza every day.
You mentioned 2020 and all that shit with lockdown life and all that, um, which I'm sure for you, um, being the creative person that you are, it kind of allowed you to focus on even more creative projects. Um, One of the things that you did that I thought was fucking hilarious that we put up on our page yesterday was your coffee commercial. Um, when I found that on the YouTube channel, I was like, this shit is fucking awesome. People need to see this. Um, what was that like for, because I know that that was a part of a project that you were doing that was like one of those live stream things.
Yeah, that was we were trying to come up with commercials to put in between live stream bands. There's a fest that we do every year in Atlanta called Down South Showdown, and it's primarily rock and roll and punk bands. And during the 2020 lockdown, people couldn't see music and stuff, but there were a lot of bands doing cool stuff, you know. So we well, Chase decided, who sets all of that stuff up, he was like, all right, we're going to do a live stream. And that was just part of it, was just kind of having fun and not just having bands and live bands play the whole time. We wanted to add in like skits and stupid stuff, you know, make it like, I don't know, Mad TV or something. But yeah, that was mine, and I think that was one of the only ones that anyone even made for it. So yeah, it came out funny, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Awesome. I'm going to pull up another audience question here real quick.
Okay.
Tandelli Lace says, go back to the pinball thing. Best score and favorite pinball machine theme.
So my favorite pinball machine is Creature from the Black Lagoon. Uh, I like the 2-ball multi-ball after you spell out film, and then you could get the jackpot, if you know what I'm talking about. Other games I like Monster Madness. I like Attack from Mars. I like, or no, Medieval Madness. I'm sorry, not Monster Madness. I guess it's not my favorite if I don't even know the name. I like a lot of those old 90s games. I don't like the new pinball machines where it's all like shitty photoshopped graphics with like fonts on them. You know what I mean? Like they're kind of cool. Some of them have cool modes and stuff, but for the most part, I like the games where it looks like a dude sat down and drew every graphic on it. I like the Elvira games, Elvira Party Monsters, and Scared Stiff. Those games rule. So yeah, I like all the horror style pinball machines, and the new Elvira kind of sucks, but what are you gonna do? It's because it's new.
Right. What's your highest score on a pinball game?
Oh man, it's probably on Creature from the Black Lagoon, and like 1 billion points, at least 1 billion. That's all I can. Yeah, I can remember.
That's incredible. How long did it take you to get that score? Like that specific game? Like was it over an hour or something?
It it was funny. I got that score while a band was setting up and like doing sound check in this place where I was like, normal people would have been extremely distracted, but I guess because I was being just like, there was all this stuff going on around me, it really put me in the zone and I got less distracted from everything. It made me hyper focus on the game and I just played it for like 2 hours straight. I got the multi-ball like 4 times. Oh, yeah.
That's an unusual skill, but it sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's cool. I started doing it just because I was bored, and I started getting better at it. And whenever that happens, I'm a pretty competitive person. So that started happening, and I started going and doing competitions and at local bars. And there's a whole scene for that. If anyone's interested, it's not hard to find.
Very cool.
Yeah.
You touched on horror a little bit, and so I want to talk about that and how it works into your music. If anybody goes onto YouTube and watches your music videos, it's pretty apparent that there is that horror influence. And the most recent video for Shake the Reaper, I love this concept of the Reaper being on a motorcycle. Whose idea was that?
That was our director Danny's idea. He was just like, and I was like, hell yeah, that rules. That's perfect, dude. Let's do it. And my friend Garmin, who I've known for years, has a motorcycle and was down to sacrifice his body for the music video and wear. So we filmed that whole video in the middle of summer where it was like, it's really humid here. And it was like over 100 degrees outside. And our friend had to wear this full-on robe with a cloak and a cape and a skull mask and ride his motorcycle at the same time. And one of the biggest challenges we had while making that was when we were trying to cram in too many of the shots in one day. And we met up with Garmin down in Pigtown, which is a neighborhood in Baltimore that's like all like run down industrial area. I thought it was like a good spot to film a lot of the video. And he brought his motorcycle. We dressed him up. But the problem was his cloak was kind of too close to his back tire. So we had to pen it up. But we didn't have any safety pins, and we ended up taping it with tape. And it didn't work out so well because the wind was blowing so hard that it blew the tape out. And the cloak got stuck in the back tire of his motorcycle and pretty much clotheslined him off of his own bike. And he wiped out in the street. Yeah. He crashed pretty hard and screwed his bike up. And that was before we got any of the footage that we needed.
Oh, so, no.
Yeah. The rest of the day was me calling AAA to get his motorcycle towed back to the bar where he keeps it. And we had to wait 2 months later to get those last shots of that motorcycle. And those were the last scenes that we put into the music video.
See, that stuff is so interesting to me because it's the things that, you know, people aren't aware of, the creative process and what all takes place to get the finished product.
Yeah, people think it's like it all happens in a day, you know.
Right.
It doesn't. There's a lot of planning and preparation and a lot of downtime, and it gets really boring. It's not as fun as you think it is.
There's a continuing theme in all of your music videos. You basically die in all of them.
Yeah.
Was that intentional, or is it just something that like it happened in one music video and then the next one you were like, you know what, it'd be cool to do that same idea but a little bit differently?
You're right. You're right. The second time, so it just went like the first music video we made, Just Another Rat. It went perfect with the way the song ended. I was just like the way the drums come out and it has that last like blast of guitars at the very end. I was like this. It just kind of the way I listened to the song and visualized it at the same time. I was like, it needs to be my brain's blowing across the bathroom wall or whatever. And we kind of came up with that concept and we went with it. And then when we put out the new album, it was like, I was like, I wonder how I could die during the last note of this next song. You know what I mean? We kind of needed a way to tie it up, like, or like, just like, it's like, it's not as fun when it just kind of ends and the band standing there. It's like something needs to happen. So that video, Nasty Night, was just supposed to be like a performance video, and then I started adding in all this stuff last minute, and we did shoot all of that in like a day. Like that was a very quickly planned video. Like we just, that was in the middle of 2020 when we hadn't even seen each other for months, and we showed up to make a music video in this warehouse, and we just came up with all this stuff and filmed it on the spot. And but yeah, I don't think there's a real deep meaning towards that. I just think it's kind of funny because it goes with the band and it goes with like the sense of danger that the songs are about, and that's it, you know. Kind of just it's funny to me. I have a sick sense of humor, so.
I also learned that you edited some of the band's music videos. Is that correct?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, Down That Road was the one that I edited. I made skate videos when I was younger, so that was easy for me to I know how to work editing software. I found a app on my phone and we filmed it on my iPhone that it looked like Super 8 film. And we used a spotlight and we got together in our old practice space and just put a spotlight on everybody and filmed each other one at a time. And I edited it all together. I downloaded a bunch of like grindhouse stock footage from the Library of Congress.com, where it's just all like public domain footage, and used that and spliced it in between, and that was a fun project. So yeah, I love doing a lot of that stuff more than sitting down and writing songs with the guitar, honestly. I like the visual stuff more.
Yeah, it's interesting because like in the early 2000s, in the punk scene, like it was rare for bands to put out music videos, but now it seems like really commonplace. And I think that has a lot to do with just the technology that's available to us.
Yeah. And how big the internet is, how many people just stare at their phones all day.
Right.
They're going to notice you more on their phone than they will if you're playing in their hometown, you know? So.
Yeah, I actually have edited some of our music videos as well. And like, it's kind of an interesting process because, you know, you see it one way in your head, and then dealing with the footage that you have, it's like you either have what you've got in your head or you don't, and you try and make it work with what you do have. And it's this other creative challenge that I actually find to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's cool. It's all just one package. It all goes together visually, and and with the audio and the songs, it's cool. And I like being able to have a part in every element of that.
Sure. Speaking of that, every element, we're going to talk a little bit about your graphic design also, because I know that plays a big part into the creative process for you. The name of this new album is Badlands, and the album art I think is fantastic. But before we talk about that, I wanted to touch on, you sent me some songs that are like the pre-show playlist for the band. And one of those songs is Outlaw by the Cult, which has the word Badlands in it several times. Did that song inspire the name of this record?
It may have. I think I found that after, and I was like, hell yeah, these guys get it. You know what I mean? That wasn't kind of like a, oh, I'm going to write it after. Maybe I had heard that song a long time ago, and I subconsciously found that term. And there's also that crazy tattoo artist Roy Boy from the Badlands that I'm a fan of, and I thought that was cool. The dude that he used to own tigers. He was like the Tiger King, but tattoo artist. So him and his wife, they owned a place where they would tattoo people, and there was also tiger cages. So and it was Roy Boy in the Badlands. I got all these '90s tattoo magazines, and his ads are in there. It's pretty cool.
That sounds wild.
Yeah, so there's that, and yeah, I just found that Cult song later. I love the all of those albums that Rick Rubin did. I kind of try to like some of those songs. Definitely Shake the Reaper. Like it's just stripped down rock and roll, AC/DC style rock and roll. Like the first Danzig albums like that. That Cult album is like that, and I was like, that's the key to making a timeless record. You know, no like fancy effects, just keep it real rock and roll.
Yeah.
Sorry for moving around too much.
All good. I want to talk a little bit about that too, just rock in general. But before we dive into that, let's talk just a little bit about your graphic design background. I know that you designed the album cover for this record. Have you designed all of the graphics for Ravagers?
Yeah, I have, just because I knew how to do it, and it was just like, do I want to pay somebody else to do it or do it myself? So I was able to do it better anyways because I knew what the music sounded like and I knew what it visually looked like in my own brain. So that's kind of where I went with it. And I was able to work on it as much as I could, you know, as much as I wanted without paying somebody else to do it.
Right.
Which I know it's a thing that bands struggle with because I'm the guy that they pay to do art for, you know. And I know how it is when it's just like sometimes it's not right. It's not what they're looking for. Or we have to rethink the whole thing and go back to the drawing board, you know. So most of the time I'm good at just like visualizing what something sounds like and nailing it the first time and coming up with a cool idea, and everybody's just like, hell yeah, that rules. So it just, that's I've been doing it for long enough, and I've got lots of books and stuff, and I do research, and I find cool references, and it comes out pretty neat. So
Conceptually, what inspired this particular cover for Badlands?
I noticed throughout like a lot of the songs, driving was like a lyrical subject in a lot of the songs, and we found this burned out, crashed out car on the side of the road in Baltimore, and I called everybody up, and I was like, you know, it would be cool as hell if we all just like got in this smashed car and took a band photo like we were dead in it. So we all just met up on the side of the road, on Sinclair Avenue, and got in the car, and I brought fake blood and pissed everybody off. I was like, no, we're gonna squirt it on our foreheads, and we did that, and then my girlfriend Shelly took a photo of it, and turned out pretty cool. So I did my normal thing where I up the contrast. Like that's kind of my design style, and which looks like, you know, an 80s Xerox copy machine that's just black and white. I take all the contrast out of the photo and chop it up and cut it up just like somebody would, you know, in the late 70s or early 80s and put it on a copy machine with their logo over the top. That's pretty much what I do in Photoshop. So I did that treatment to it, and it came out looking pretty rad. So I kept it.
You said that you get hired a lot to do graphic design for different artists. One of the things that I noticed on your Instagram page is that you did a poster design for Corey Taylor recently.
Oh yeah, Corey Taylor, singer Slipknot. I did.
Right.
He came out with a solo album, and I had done art for his wife, who before she was married to him, and I got a connection through that, and I designed like 20 T-shirts for him last summer.
Wow.
And yeah, I still do stuff for him, so it's pretty cool.
So Corey Taylor's in, you know, several projects, obviously Slipknot, like you said, Stone
Yeah.
Sour. He has his solo album, CMFT. And I'm a fan of lots of different genres of music. Slipknot is definitely one of those bands that I'm like, fuck yeah, because they just go wild. Are you a fan of like contemporary rock or contemporary metal at all?
I'm not super huge into it, but I can appreciate when it's good, and I know when it's really bad. So, like I understand why Slipknot's good, and they are a great band, but it's like I don't relate to it as much as I do the music that I like, you know. But I think that's kind of why I'm good at graphic design, is because I can kind of look outside of my own box and see the strong points of other people's bands and how it's visually interpreted.
Is there any contemporary commercial rock that excites you?
I wish.
Same here.
It all sounds like Disney music to me, honestly, like everything I hear on the radio, and that's not what I like. So yeah, there's no bands that I like really at all.
It's sad because, you know, all the way from the 50s through the 90s, rock was just predominant in our culture. And of course, it was developing more and more.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I feel like right in the early 2000s, shit just got less and less interesting. And it's really frustrating because so many of the bands that were popular in the 70s, the 80s, those are the bands that you're hearing now still on the radio. And it's like, how many fucking times do I have to hear Welcome to the Jungle? Like, yeah, it was a badass song when it came out, but you know, why are there not any contemporary bands that have that same kind of gritty energy, and why isn't it played on the radio? Why don't people give a fuck about it anymore?
I think because there were more people taking risks on music back then, and it wasn't about what was already selling a lot. And if a new band came out and people liked that band, people would put a lot of money into it. And there was also money in rock and roll at that time. And now there's just the internet, so people can use algorithms and stuff to see what songs the most people like and want to hear, which unfortunately most of the people in the country are stupid and want to hear really bad stuff. So everything is like, well, this sells. This is what it needs to sound like in order to get on the radio, get airplay. And it's also, there's just so much. There's not like, you don't earn a record label anymore by getting a band big. Like it's all controlled by money. A lot of people
a lot of bands that go on tour with bigger bands, it's not because they earned that position. It's because they paid to get on that bill. It's because they paid the promoter to, open for this band at the Viper Room in LA or whatever. It's all fake. And it's just like a bunch of millionaire people playing rock star like it's a game.
Right. Yeah, I think
So
that a lot of people aren't even aware of that. Like the whole premise of bands just paying to be on certain tours, but that is a very real thing that
yeah, exactly.
What do you think rock and roll is going to be like 50 years from now?
I don't know. I hope it still exists, honestly. Like as long as there's people like us that care about doing it as a craft and not as a way to get to the top and just being in a band because we like to do it, then it'll always be around. But what's it going to be like? I'm not sure. I don't know. Hopefully it's not even shittier than it is now because
Yeah.
it's not that good now. But
Yeah,
I
man.
hope it gets better. I hope it all collapses. I hope the music industry and the internet just collapses on itself and things start over again. You know?
You know, anything is possible. So who knows what's going to happen? But all of these guys that are in these massive rock bands like Guns N' Roses or whatever, 50 years from now, they're all going to be dead, so they can't tour
Yeah,
anymore. And
exactly.
like what kind of relevance is that music going to have on culture or society at that time? I hope you're right. I hope that there's going to be people that music just speaks to their core, and they decide to create, not for money, but as an outlet.
Yeah, absolutely. Like that's why they did it back in the day too, because they actually loved the music. And now I feel like people make music not because they love it, but because this is what everyone else loves. And once you start doing that, your band is gonna suck. Yeah.
Um, Couple other little things I want to talk about before we wrap it up. This isn't really a little thing; it's a big thing. You've got an upcoming tour that you mentioned earlier.
Totally. Yeah.
Suzi Moon's going out with you guys.
Yes.
Is there a particular show you're looking forward to?
Well, I'm looking forward to LA because last time we played there was awesome. I'm looking forward to Austin because we have lots of friends and real rock and roll bands that are there that are gonna play with us. Atlanta, Chicago, of course, is like the best city for rock and roll and punk to me. I think that's why they just did that fest there. You know, yeah, Chicago has always ruled since I was 18 and playing in my earlier band. The first time I went to Chicago, I was just like, this is crazy. Like, I didn't know what to expect. And it was just like, I met so many people. Everybody looked cool. Everybody's bands were loud and crazy. And everybody was just like living it like it was their last day on earth, you know? So, Chicago rules. Atlanta is great. Austin, Texas. We're also looking forward to playing everywhere in between that too, because there's so many places that a lot of bands don't play. Like Denver. Denver rules. We always have a great turnout in Denver. It's just some of those places are just hard to drive to. They're in between 10-hour drives, and you really have to, haul ass to get there. So, but once you do, people are like, "We're so stoked you're here," and they treat you great, and that's really what I'm looking forward to on this tour. So,
Yeah, no doubt, man.
yeah,
You guys have played with some pretty legendary bands, like the Damned and the Addicts. And
yeah.
those are some larger stage shows. Do you have a preference of large stage versus small stage?
I like small stage when people are like in your face and stuff. I feel more comfortable and I feel more part of the crowd, but I also do like playing bigger venues where the monitors work and you can hear yourself and you know what your voice sounds like there's like a different thing that happens there. I feel like we play two different shows when we're in like a bigger setting rather than a smaller setting. There's more like live energy and you're feeding off the crowd in a smaller venue, rather than like a big auditorium where there's like a barrier in front of the stage. You really have to work for people's attention in those places too. You know what I mean? Like they're standing further away from you, so they see less of your movements and your facial expressions on stage. It's like you have to perform differently.
Yeah, no doubt. Commanding the audience is totally different on a larger stage. There's no question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is there a bucket list band that you'd like to play with someday?
I'd probably like to play with Danzig, like his current lineup now, or Misfits, open for like one of those big stadium Misfits shows.
Yeah. Have you seen that? Have you seen it
Absolutely. Yet? Yeah, I've seen it. I saw the first show in Denver at Riot Fest in 2016. I saw him in Jersey, and I saw him in Philly. And cool. It was amazing.
Yeah, I saw them in LA, and it was wild. Like, I couldn't believe what I was watching.
Yeah, it's pretty cool knowing that a band that plays punk could eventually, just like own it like that.
Sure. Is there a bucket list band that you'd like to see? Doesn't have to be a punk band, just any band.
I don't think so. I've seen them all already. I've seen Motorhead a few times, and it's just like I wish I could see them again. So maybe that's my answer.
Gotcha. Is that your most favorite show that you have seen? Is Motorhead?
Motorhead in Atlantic City in a casino was pretty sick. Yeah, that was probably one of the best ones. Yeah.
Nice.
Say that. Yeah.
Okay, we're going to do one more audience question before we wrap it up here.
Okay, cool.
Do you have a favorite skateboarder?
Oh yeah, I like all the piss drunk dudes. Like I like Dustin Dollin. So we played a show in Denver, and Dustin Dollin was at the show, and he was moshing while I was playing. That was probably one of the coolest experiences for me.
This question still comes from that same person, CTOMASI.
Oh, cool.
Says, what's the most memorable experience you've had with the band?
So far, I guess it would probably be when we played in Toronto, and somehow I dislocated my kneecap on stage, and my band didn't realize what happened. They thought I was on the ground, like rocking out extra hard, but I was in pain because I was injured, and my knee was lodged on the side of my leg. And our last guitar player, Zach, kind of saw what was going on through my fucking stretch jeans and was like, oh my God, stop playing guitar. He picked me up with our bass player, Kurt. They both picked me up and kind of like, you okay? And I popped my kneecap back into place, and some dude, when he saw that, some guy standing in front of me started throwing up on himself. It's like the craziest, gnarliest thing that's ever happened at a live show to me with my band. Besides that, just like, yeah, we have so many good memories. But that was one of the bad memories. That's kind of like a good memory because it's fun to talk about. But
it's funny that you say that because we actually had the same thing happen. Our guitarist, he jumped off of stage and broke his leg.
Yeah.
And it was just before we were supposed to leave for a tour.
Oh, no.
So his leg was all fucked up on the tour. He still did it.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, people don't realize some of the shit that happens on stage. I've been electrocuted on stage before, like to the point where like it knocked me on my ass.
Yeah, that's terrifying. That's I'm glad I haven't been shocked that hard. I've been shocked where my face got kind of numb for a second, but I haven't felt like falling down or out.
Yeah, no fun, man.
Yeah. Yeah, that was our first night and Toronto in this Canadian tour, so I had to play the rest of the shows with on crutches, with like sitting on a stool, because it was just like I didn't want to bail and cancel. You know, it wasn't easy, but we were playing shows with a cool band up there, and the dude had just had knee surgery like the year before, so he had this huge cast thing, this like immobilizer, and he was like, "Here you go, buddy, I got this." And he put it around, and he had the crutches for me at his house, so I felt like I was in good hands, you know. And we were able to finish like 4 shows after that, and then drive back to Baltimore.
The show must go on, right?
Absolutely.
Well, and before I let you go, are there any shout outs that you'd like to give?
Well, yeah, check out our tour dates. We're going to be on a 4-week tour, April 15th through May 15th. So, check that out, and check out our new record, Badlands. It's on Spotify, Bandcamp, and the pre-order for the vinyl is up. And I just got a message from the pressing plant saying it should be done by first week of March. So hopefully we get them in time for tour. I really hope so. It's kind of a hard time to put any record out right now with that.
Yeah, the vinyl situation is just fucking up everyone's release.
Yeah, we've waited over 2 years to have it. Like, it's been in the process for 2 years, so yeah, I'm hoping the stars align and we get them in time.
Totally. Well, congrats on the new record. It's killer. I love it.
Thank you.
You're
Cool.
welcome. You guys be safe out there on the road.
Totally, yeah.
And hopefully I can have you on here another time to talk about whatever is next for you guys.
Yeah, anytime, dude.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot, Alex, and we'll see you next time, man.
Sounds good. Thanks, man.
You're
See you,
welcome.
Jason.
All right, everyone. So playing us out right now is Living in Oblivion off of the Badlands record. Join us next week when John and Sophie of Grimace Records will be our guests. We're going to be discussing their upcoming 3rd compilation and their goals as a label. Next month is Women's History Month. We'll be celebrating with interviews featuring women in the scene all month long. All right, everyone. Until next time, later.